Now,
Exactly.
I asked you this because people used to always ask me, what's the difference between Kanban and the product backlog? And I used to say nothing except the name. But you corrected me. And I did know this. I did know that Kanban from the process, and maybe you can elaborate on this a little bit, has a different workflow.
Very
and in fact,
different
you
flow.
said it doesn't even have a workflow. So maybe you can start off with a product backlog and remind people how does that work? And then we can compare the Kanban.
So the product backlog, as you mentioned, is actually a really good idea. And you can do a backlog in waterfall too. It's not just an agile thing, right?
Yeah.
You can do it, right? And let me say this also, I actually dislike the term product backlog. And the main reason, and I know it's going to be semantics a little bit, but it's not just about the product. You could be doing all kinds of things that have nothing to do with a product.
But isn't that the agile vision, though? They eliminate all what's called the project management scope and focus on product scope. It's all about features, right?
So let's go down that rabbit hole just a little bit. Then we'll dig ourselves back out again. Okay. So here's the challenge for companies that actually have a product that makes sense, right? And yes, you could say that every company has a product. You can mutate it and say yes, every company has a product. But those companies, like let's take a bank as an example. A bank has a lot of internal systems, and those systems are more capabilities than they are products.
Yeah.
Right? So there are a lot of companies where the product mindset just doesn't really quite fit right.
Yeah.
And we try to force it by changing the definition of a product. As well, this service here, that's really a product, and you get the idea. I think it gets messy, right? So I just prefer to call it a backlog. I know it's a simplification, but it's whatever work we need to do.
Hey, it's not a sexy terminology to begin with, so feel free to improve it.
Exactly. And even the word backlog has some negative connotation, like a backlog of stuff you're never going to get to.
Yeah, it means that you're stuck and you're not moving forward. Yeah.
Exactly. And that wasn't their intent, but that's kind of the way it comes up. All right. So let's talk now about the backlog. The backlog is an aggressively prioritized list of work that you're going to do now, next, later. Right. That kind of approach. Now, when I say aggressively prioritized, and this is the benefit of this backlog, there's one priority priority two, right? Not 10 priority ones.
Yeah.
And that's the real key. And this is not about about agile. This is really just be smart and reduce your priorities, right? You should not have priorities. You should have priority. Right?
Well, I actually learned that you can, depending on the size of the things you're talking about, you create the first priority, kind of the triage, right?
Yes.
But that's something that you do at the beginning of your sprint planning session, so that you don't get smitten or overwhelmed by everything that's in that backlog, right? You say, hey, let's focus. Exactly. This is what we're focusing on, right?
This is the most important stuff that we want to work on. Yeah.
And then you basically have a team that projects into the sprint, right? And they start figuring out what each individual do per sprint.
Yeah. Essentially, yes, exactly. And now the key with the backlog, again, is it's aggressively prioritized, and that's for all kinds of good reasons. You want your team to focus. You don't want them, the stress of having 12 different things that are all the most important thing. They're getting yelled at because they're late. All the normal reasons, right? Single, aggressively prioritized backlog. Now, that product backlog is actually quite similar with Kanban and Scrum. They both use the concept of a, like you said, kind of like a big to-do list, right?
That's a funnel that moves from left to right. That's where they're similar.
Yeah. Now, and also both Scrum and Kanban do have the concept that you need to keep your backlog managed well, right? Because if you don't manage that filter, that funnel coming into your process, then you could have things on that backlog that are 5 years old. It's not doing you any good. So it should be stuff that you have a reasonable certainty that you're going to work on.
So don't distract people with nice to haves that are just going to make you depressed all the time. Focus on what I
have an idea. Okay, we'll get the idea on there, but if it's been there for 6 months, your chances are you're not going to do it. So get rid of the stupid thing, right? Just be smart about it, right? And manage that backlog reasonably.